Welcome to Leading by Example, Upholding Standards Without Compromise. I am your host, Dr. Vaughn, inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. Are you ready to be better within your world and become the standard bearer within your organization or wherever you are? Leaders, aspirants, every one of you, all of us influence our culture, the organization's culture, our workplace's culture through actions taken both inside and outside of the workplace. I founded Ontero Solutions upon integrity, customer satisfaction, and attention to detail, specifically executive coaching and leadership development. Join in for fun, practical, and educational stories as I share lessons, both the good and the bad, that I have learned in my 20 years of leadership and management experience. Leading by example starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of our radio show where we dive into the real issues that challenge our standards, inspire change, and help us lead by example in a world that sometimes forgets what really matters. I'm your host, Dr. Vaughn, and I'm thrilled to have you with me as we explore these important topics together. Have you ever wondered why it feels like our values are often compromised, whether it's in our workplace, in politics, or even in our personal lives? Why do we sometimes see principles being pushed aside for quick wins or convenience? These are the kinds of questions we're tackling on this show, Leading by Example, Upholding Standards Without Compromise. Throughout our series, we'll dig deep into the tough issues, offering insights, answers, and most importantly, solutions. So are you ready to explore how we can all lead by example? If so, we're going to get started. So today, we're continuing our series titled Upholding the Unspeakable, Tackling Taboo Topics and Leadership Ethics. This series is all about giving you practical advice on how to handle ethical dilemmas as a leader, so you can create a transparent, accountable, and ethical atmosphere in your organization. In our first episode, The Ethics of Whistleblowing, we looked at the challenges and impacts of whistleblowing on leadership and organizational culture. Today's episode, titled Navigating Nepotism and Favoritism, we'll dive into the tricky waters of nepotism and favoritism in organizations and explore how leaders can ethically manage personal and professional boundaries. So these are the discussion points that we'll cover for today's episode. We've got a lot to cover, and these are the 3 discussion points. We'll talk about how nepotism and favoritism affect team dynamics and organizational success. We'll discuss practical guidelines for maintaining fairness in hiring and promotions. And then we'll talk a couple of real-life case studies that show how nepotism and favoritism can either be managed successfully or lead to serious ethical breaches. So you all know I love a good Bible story. And King David, the story of King David is one of my favorite. There are so many about King David. So let's just start with a story that really hits home on this topic, the selection of David as king. So when God sent the prophet Samuel to anoint a new king of Israel, he told Samuel not to focus on outward appearances or seniority, but to look at the heart. And that's how David, the youngest son of Jesse, was chosen to be king over his older and seemingly more qualified brothers. The scriptural reference is 1 Samuel 16, verses 1 through 13. But I'll read it to you here. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." But Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." The Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate." Samuel did what the Lord said. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled when they met him. They asked, "Do you come in peace?" Samuel replied, "Yes, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Jesse then had Shammah pass by. But Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen these." So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons you have?" "There is still the youngest," Jesse answered. "He is tending the sheep." Samuel said, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Samuel then went to Ramah. So the moral of the story is significant in his message against nepotism and favoritism based on superficial qualities or societal expectations. It emphasizes that true leadership qualities are not always visible or associated with seniority or family position, thereby challenging leaders to look beyond biases when making decisions. So this story brings us to our first discussion point. I hope you all enjoyed the story. Our first discussion point is impact on morale and productivity. How do nepotism and favoritism affect team dynamics and organizational success? Well, nepotism and favoritism can really drag down morale and productivity in an organization. Here are 6 ways or negative impacts in which this happens. The first way is through decreased employee morale. And this is realized through resentment and frustration. For example, if people see that promotions and rewards are based on who you know rather than what you've done, it's natural for frustration to build. Hardworking employees may feel undervalued and start to lose motivation. There's also an erosion of trust that leads to decreased employee morale. This trust in leadership can take a major hit if employees believe decisions are being made based on favoritism, which can also lead to a toxic environment where people are disengaged and disillusioned. In previous episodes, we talked about what happens when employees are disengaged. It leads to lower productivity and, it impacts negatively the bottom line. Reduced loyalty also leads to decreased employee morale because people may feel their contributions aren't recognized fairly. They're less likely to stay loyal to the organization, and they might start looking for opportunities elsewhere. The second element is lower productivity through demotivation. This is observed when overlooking deserving employees in favor of those with personal connections can demotivate the whole team, leading to a drop in productivity. There can be decreased initiative. In a workplace where nepotism is the norm, people might be less inclined to take initiative or innovate, thinking that their efforts won't be properly recognized. And this also leads to inefficiency. Realized from placing unqualified individuals in key roles can lead to inefficiencies and poor decision-making, which ultimately hurts the organization's performance and bottom line. The third element is increased turnover through high employee turnover. So when employees feel that their opportunities for growth are limited by nepotism or favoritism, they are more likely to leave the organization. High turnover can be costly for an organization, both in terms of recruitment and the loss of institutional knowledge. And there also is a talent drain, the realization of a talent drain, where the most talented and high-performing employees are often the first to leave in environments where favoritism is prevalent. This can lead to, again, a talent drain where the organization loses its best assets, further impacting productivity and competitiveness in the marketplace. The fourth element is negative organizational culture. And this is realized through a toxic work environment. Favoritism and nepotism can contribute to a toxic work environment where cliques form, communication breaks down, and conflicts arise. This can lead to a culture of division and infighting, which undermines collaboration and teamwork. It also leads to a lack of diversity and inclusion. because favoring a select group of individuals, whether family members or friends, can limit diversity in the organization. This lack of diversity can stifle creativity and innovation, as a homogeneous group is less likely to bring new perspectives and ideas. The fifth element is damage to reputation, which is realized from external perception. An organization known for nepotism and favoritism may suffer damage to its reputation, both within the industry and among potential employees. And this can make it harder to attract top talent, and it may lead to negative perceptions from customers, clients, and stakeholders. It could also lead to legal and ethical issues. In some cases, favoritism and nepotism can lead to legal challenges, especially if they result in discrimination or violate employment laws. Ethical breaches can also attract negative media attention and harm the organization's public image. And the last negative impact is the stifling of meritocracy by undermining merit-based systems. So nepotism and favoritism undermine the principles of meritocracy, where individuals are rewarded based on their skills, achievements, and contributions to the organization. This undermining leads to a culture where mediocrity is accepted and excellence is not recognized or rewarded. And this discourages competence. When employees see that competence and hard work are not the criteria for advancement, they may reduce their efforts, leading to a general decline in organizational performance. So as you can see here, nepotism and favoritism can have far-reaching negative effects on an organization's morale, productivity, and overall success. To foster a healthy, productive, and inclusive work environment, it is crucial for organizations to implement transparent and fair processes for hiring, promotions, and rewards, ensuring that merit and competence are the guiding principles. And, this was super interesting to me because as I know you all have probably, heard, nepotism a lot in the entertainment industry. A lot of, you have, I'm gonna say a lot, but some, actors or, entertainers, I'll just say, are, being labeled as Nepo babies because of their connections to, famous parents or, relatives or, sometimes just knowing someone else. And, personally, I don't necessarily feel that's a bad thing unless said individual is not talented. And, you probably see people in the industry that are not. But, for me as a small business owner, I would love, to achieve the growth and the scale that I dream of and be able to pass my business off to my children, or other family members, granted, if they have, the requisite skills to not run my business in the ground. So, it's just something to think about. And this takes us to discussion point 1B. So, how does nepotism and favoritism affect team dynamics and organizational success? Nepotism and favoritism doesn't just hurt individuals. They can disrupt team dynamics and damage the entire organization, because this is what happens. We talked a little bit earlier about the creation of divisions and cliques. When favoritism is at play, it creates divisions within the team, and those who feel excluded may form cliques, leading to an us versus them mentality. When certain individuals are favored due to personal relationships rather than merit, it can create divisions within the team. And this division can hinder collaboration and open communication, which are essential components of effective teamwork. It can also lead to a lack of cohesion and trust among team members. And speaking of decreased collaboration, favoritism can discourage collaboration, as people may be less willing to work closely with those who are unfairly favored. Have you observed that within your organizations that you've been a part of? And this, the impact of this is that employees may be less inclined to share ideas or support initiatives led by those who have been favored through nepotism, which further results in siloed work environments where information and resources are not shared freely, leading to inefficiencies and missed opportunities for innovation throughout the enterprise or that organization. Additionally, when decisions are based on favoritism, team morale can plummet, leading to widespread dissatisfaction and disengagement. When team members see that decisions are being made based on favoritism, it leads to widespread dissatisfaction and a sense of injustice. Employees may feel their contributions are undervalued, leading to frustration, and lower morale often translates into decreased productivity, higher absenteeism, and an overall reduction in team performance. And all of these things, all of them, impact the organization's bottom line. And the final disruptor of team dynamics is erosion of trust, one of the most damaging effects of nepotism and favoritism in any organization is the erosion of trust. Trust is the foundation of any successful team and organization, and without it, everything else starts to crumble. When employees see that decisions are being made based on personal connections rather than merit, it shakes their confidence in the leadership and the organization as a whole. Nepotism and favoritism erode trust as employees may doubt the fairness of decisions made by leaders or the motives of the favored individuals. And the outcome is that the erosion of trust leads to increased conflict, reduced cooperation, and a reluctance to depend on or support team members, all of which undermine team and organizational effectiveness. The second impact is the impact on organizational success through reduced organizational performance. When key roles are filled based on personal connections rather than qualifications, it can lead to poor leadership and decision-making. Individuals who are not adequately skilled or experienced may struggle to perform their roles effectively. I'm sure you all have seen this. I think we've all seen this. And this further leads to strategic missteps, operational inefficiencies, and ultimately a decline in organizational performance and competitiveness. It also leads to stunted innovation and creativity by creating an environment where new ideas aren't valued unless they come from the favored individual. Employees may also be less likely to take risks or think creatively if they believe that their efforts will not be recognized or rewarded fairly. An innovation gap can emerge, with the organization falling behind competitors that fosters a more inclusive and merit-based culture. So there are so many impacts to this all around for, eradicating nepotism and favoritism within the organizational culture. Employees who feel blocked by nepotism are more likely to leave, and this, again, leads to high turnover and the loss of top talent. So with this, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about some additional negative impacts that nepotism and favoritism have on organizational culture. See you right back here shortly. So another significant and negative consequence is the damage it can do to an organization's reputation. In today's world, reputation is everything. It's not just about how your customers or your clients perceive you. It's about how you're viewed by potential employees, investors, and even the public. Organizations known for nepotism and favoritism struggle to attract top talent and face reputational damage from clients, customers, and stakeholders. And these negative perceptions spread internally, further demoralizing the workforce. A damaged reputation can lead to lost business opportunities, difficulties in hiring, and a weakened competitive position in the market. So just think about all of these things. Who wants to do business with another business that has this nasty reputation? The adage, birds of a feather flock together. I wouldn't want to be associated with an organization that has a bad reputation. Another negative impact of nepotism and favoritism is that it leads to compromised leadership credibility. Leadership credibility is one of the most valuable assets any leader can have. It's what allows leaders to inspire trust, guide their teams, and make tough decisions with the support of those they lead. But when nepotism and favoritism come into play, that credibility can quickly be compromised. When leaders are seen to favor certain individuals based on personal relationships rather than merit, it casts doubt on their judgment and fairness. Employees begin to question whether decisions are being made in the best interest of the organization or simply to benefit a select few. This perception can severely undermine a leader's authority and effectiveness. And this is something that leaders should definitely try to stay away from, especially, there are times when decisions have to be made on the fly and you need your team to rally behind you. You need those that support you, that are within your charge to rally behind you. You don't need anyone within your formations, and I say formation because I have a military background, but you don't need anyone in your formations doubting your decision because, your credibility has been compromised because of your previous decision. So keep this in mind. So again, leaders who engage in nepotism or favoritism risk losing credibility and respect among their teams. Employees may question judgment and fairness. And again, this just serves to further undermine authority and effectiveness. Compromised leadership can lead to a lack of direction, poor decision-making, and an inability to effectively manage and motivate the team, all of which hinders the organization's ability to achieve this goal. So there are so many things that leaders have to consider and, carry on their shoulders, but it's super important that we keep this in mind. And I say we because all of us are leaders. So what are the long-term consequences of nepotism and favoritism? We've just discussed the acute impacts on organizational success or lack thereof. Now let's highlight the chronic consequences of nepotism and favoritism. It can lead to cultural decline. Organizational culture is the backbone of any successful company. It's what defines how employees interact, how decisions are made, and ultimately how the organization achieves its goals. But when nepotism and favoritism are allowed to take root, the very culture that supports the organization can begin to deteriorate. Over time, these practices can shift the values and norms within the organization, leading to a culture where fairness and merit are devalued. What starts as isolated incidents can gradually become the norm because of what? Compromise, thereby creating an environment where employees are more focused on forming alliances and gaining favor rather than contributing to the organization's success. It also leads to widespread cynicism and disengagement across the organization, resulting in a toxic culture that can be difficult to change and can have lasting negative effects on organizational success, employee well-being, and overall sustainability. And beyond the immediate impacts on morale and productivity, nepotism and favoritism can also open the door to significant legal and ethical risks for an organization. In today's business environment, companies are held to high standards of fairness and equality, and failing to meet these standards can have serious consequences. When favoritism leads to discriminatory practices, such as hiring or promoting individuals based on personal relationships rather than merit, it can result in violations of employment laws. These legal breaches can lead to lawsuits, financial penalties, and regulatory scrutiny, which can be both costly and damaging to the organization and its reputation. But the risks aren't just legal. There are also ethical considerations to keep in mind. Organizations that are seen to engage in unfair practices can quickly lose the trust of their employees, customers, and the public. Ethical lapses can attract negative media attention and lead to long-term damage to the organization's brand and credibility. How many times have you seen various stories in the news about organizations, not just on favoritism or, nepotism, on anything, and how that negatively impacts that organization's reputation? In short, nepotism and favoritism can severely disrupt team dynamics, leading to division, decreased morale, and a breakdown of trust. These issues, in turn, can negatively impact organizational success by reducing productivity, stifling innovation, and damaging the organization's reputation and culture. To achieve long-term success, it is essential for organizations to promote fairness, transparency, and meritocracy in all aspects of leadership and decision-making. So this takes us to discussion point 2. You may be saying, Dr. Vaughn, you said a lot. Whew, how can I keep my organization out of hot water? I'm so glad you asked, because now I'm going to give you some guidelines for maintaining fairness in hiring and promotions. To avoid the pitfalls of nepotism and favoritism, organizations need to establish fair and transparent hiring and promotion processes. Maintaining fairness in hiring and promotions is crucial for fostering an inclusive, equitable, and productive work environment. Here are some key guidelines to help ensure fairness. I have 12, so stay with me. I was going to make a mnemonic, but they're all important. And I couldn't think of a 12-letter word. So here we go. The first one being establish clear and objective criteria. Leaders can define job requirements, clearly outlining the qualifications, skills, experience, and competencies required for each position. Ensure that these criteria are directly related to the job's responsibilities. You can also standardize evaluation methods. Use standardized tools such as structured interviews, skills assessments, and competency-based evaluations to objectively measure candidates' abilities. Number 2, promote transparency. This is done by clearly communicating the hiring and promotion processes to all employees. Make sure that everyone understands how decisions are made and what criteria are used. And document these decisions. Keep detailed records of the hiring and promotion processes, including the rationale for selecting or not selecting candidates. This transparency can help address concerns about fairness. Number 3, ensure diverse and inclusive recruitment. This is done through broad outreach. Use diverse recruiting channels to reach a wide range of candidates from different backgrounds. Avoid relying solely on internal referrals or networks that may limit diversity. You can also incorporate inclusive job descriptions. Craft job descriptions of using inclusive language that attracts a diverse pool of applicants. Avoid jargon or language that may unintentionally exclude certain groups. Number 4, leaders can implement bias training, such as unconscious bias training. Provide training for hiring managers and interview panels on recognizing and mitigating unconscious bias. This helps to ensure that decisions are based on merit rather than stereotypes or personal preferences. And implement diverse hiring panels. Involve diverse interview panels to bring different perspectives and reduce the impact of individual biases on hiring and promotion decisions. Number 5, foster a merit-based culture by rewarding performance. Base promotions on clear performance metrics, achievements, and contributions to the organization. Ensure that all employees understand what is required for advancement. And then provide equal access to training, mentorship, and professional development programs. Encourage continuous learning and skill building for all employees through career development opportunities. Number 6, conduct regular audits. Halfway there, y'all. I told you I got a lot, but they're all important. Conduct regular audits. Regularly review your hiring practices and your promotion practices to identify and address any disparities or patterns of bias. Audits can help ensure that processes are being applied consistently and fairly. And then you want to monitor diversity metrics. Track diversity and inclusion metrics to ensure that hiring and promotions are contributing to a diverse and equitable workforce. Number 7, provide feedback and support. Offer constructive feedback to both successful and unsuccessful candidates. This helps candidates understand how they can improve, and it prepares them for future opportunities. And support career development. Provide guidance and support to employees who are not promoted, including career counseling and development plans to help them achieve future success. Number 8, establish accountability. Hold leaders accountable. Ensure that managers and leaders are held accountable for promoting fairness in hiring and promotions. Include fairness and diversity goals in their performance evaluations. That's a good way to keep them accountable, right? And then create reporting mechanisms. Establish channels for employees to report concerns or grievances related to hiring and promotions, and ensure that these reports are taken seriously and addressed promptly. Number 9, almost there, y'all. Encourage employee participation. Involve the employees. Engage employees in discussions about hiring practices. Their input can help identify areas for improvement and foster a sense of ownership and inclusion. This is so super duper important. And have transparency in internal job postings. Make the internal job postings available to all eligible employees, not just a select few, allowing them to apply for new roles based on their skills and experience. Number 10, align practices with organizational values. What does that mean? Integrate the organization's core values. Ensure that hiring and promotion practices reflect the organization's core values, such as integrity, equity, and respect. Align these practices with the broader goals of fostering a positive and inclusive workplace culture. Number 11, provide regular training and updates through ongoing education. Regularly update hiring managers and employees on the best practices for fair hiring and promotions. Provide training sessions that address current challenges and evolving industry standards. And then lastly, number 12, yay, we made it. Implement and review policy changes. Update your policies. Regularly review and update HR policies to reflect changes in employment law, industry standards, and organizational goals related to fairness and equity. And you got to have a continuous feedback loop. Be open to feedback and willing to adjust policies and practices as needed to ensure that they continue to promote fairness and meet the needs of the organization. By following these 12 guidelines, lengthy but good, by following them, organizations can create a fair and transparent hiring and promotion process that fosters a positive work environment, encourages employee development, and promotes diversity and inclusion. So this brings us to our final discussion point, where we're going to briefly talk about 2 case studies, 2 real-life case studies or scenarios where nepotism and favoritism were either successfully managed or led to ethical breaches. The first example of nepotism in organizational leadership involves the San Francisco District Attorney, Brooke Jenkins. So Brooke Jenkins was appointed as San Francisco's District Attorney in July of 2022 by Mayor London Breed after the recall of her predecessor, Chesa Boudin. Jenkins had been a vocal critic of Boudin and played a significant role in the recall campaign, raising questions about the potential for political favoritism in her appointment. So it started right there. Upon taking office, Jenkins made several controversial staffing decisions that drew accusations of favoritism. She dismissed several staff members hired by her predecessor and replaced them with individuals who had ties to her, including friends and allies from the legal community. Critics argued that these appointments were based more on personal loyalty and political alignment than on merit or qualifications. The specific allegations against DA Jenkins was the hiring of friends and allies. She was criticized for hiring people with whom she had close personal relationships, including former colleagues and friends, to fill key positions within the DA's office. This raised concerns that these hires were not based on their qualifications, but rather on their loyalty to the DA. DA Jenkins was accused of conflicts of interest. She faced accusations that her appointments and decisions were influenced by her personal and political connections rather than what was in the best interest of the public. This includes concerns about how her office might handle cases involving individuals or entities with whom she or her appointees have personal ties. And then lastly, public perception. The staffing changes and the way she was appointed to have led to public concerns about transparency and the ethical management of the DA's office. Critics have pointed out that the appearance of favoritism undermines public trust in the impartiality and fairness of the justice system. And this leads to grave ethical concerns. The allegations against DA Brooke Jenkins highlight the ethical challenges that can arise when personal relationships and professional responsibilities intersect in public office. The perception of favoritism can damage the credibility of an office, particularly one as crucial as the DA's office, which is responsible for upholding justice and the law. These allegations have the potential to erode public trust, as citizens may feel that the decisions are being made based on personal connections rather than the rule of law and public interest. So we're going to take a quick break and move on to our second case study, but come right back. I want to tell you a little bit about Travis Kalanick at Uber. See you back shortly. All right, so welcome back. We're going to finish up this episode with a quick little discussion about Uber. So we touched on the situation with DA Brooke Jenkins, but let's look at another example, which is Uber. Travis Kalanick, I probably butchered his name, but Travis Kalanick, he co-founded Uber in 2009 and served as its CEO until 2017. During his tenure, he was known for his aggressive leadership style and for fostering a highly competitive and sometimes toxic workplace culture. He was known to have a close-knit group of loyal executives and employees, often referred to as the A-team. How many times have you heard of that term within your workspaces? And how many people clamor to be on the A-team, right? Reminds me of Office episode. But anyway, often referred to as the A-team, these people were granted significant power and influence within the company. These individuals who had close personal ties with Kalanick were frequently promoted and given key responsibilities, sometimes despite their relative lack of experience or qualifications compared to other employees. This favoritism contributed to a culture where decisions were made based on personal loyalty rather than merit, leading to widespread issues within the company. And this included instances of overlooking misconduct, fostering a culture of fear, and alienating employees who were not part of this inner circle or A-team. Favoritism and nepotism within Uber's leadership team led to internal conflicts, dissatisfaction among employees, and a breakdown in organizational cohesion. Many talented employees felt marginalized, which contributed to high turnover rates and the loss of morale within the company. The favoritism, along with other issues like sexual harassment allegations and regulatory challenges, culminated in significant reputational damage for Uber. The company faced multiple scandals, leading to a public relations crisis and increased scrutiny from regulators and the media. Ultimately, the negative impact of this culture and the growing number of controversies led to Travis Kalanick being pressured to resign as CEO. His departure was seen as necessary to address the deep-seated issues within Uber and to steer the company toward a more sustainable and ethical path. So this example demonstrates how nepotism and favoritism at the leadership level can undermine organizational integrity, create a toxic work environment, and lead to significant long-term consequences, including the eventual downfall of the leader who engages in these practices. So, as we wrap up today's episode of Navigating Nepotism and Favoritism, it's clear that these practices, while sometimes rooted in loyalty and trust, can have far-reaching negative consequences for organizations. Whether it's in a high-profile public office or a fast-paced corporate environment, favoritism and nepotism can erode trust, stifle innovation, and ultimately undermine the very foundation of a fair and meritocratic workplace. The examples we've discussed, from the challenges faced by DA Brooke Jenkins to the leadership struggles at Uber, serve as powerful reminders of the importance of maintaining ethical boundaries in leadership. It's vital for leaders to prioritize fairness, transparency, and merit in their decision-making processes. By doing so, they not only foster a more inclusive and motivated workforce, but also ensure the long-term success and credibility of their organizations. Remember, the integrity of leadership is not just about who you know, but how you lead. Let's continue to advocate for environments where talent and hard work are recognized and rewarded, paving the way for a more just and productive future for all. Thank you so very much for joining me today. Until next time, stay informed, stay ethical, and keep striving for excellence in all you do. If today's discussion on nepotism and favoritism resonated with you, it's time to take action. Whether you're a leader, an employee, or simply someone who cares about fairness in the workplace, you have the power to make a difference. Start by advocating for transparent and merit-based processes in your organization. Speak up when you see unfair practices, or like we used to say in the military, sound off, and support initiatives that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's work together to build environments where everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed based on their talents and hard work, not just their connections. Share this episode with your colleagues and networks to spread awareness, and join the conversation on social media using the hashtag #FairWorkplace. Remember, change starts with each of us. Together, we can create workplaces that are not only successful, but are also just and equitable for all. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Let's continue to push for fairness and integrity in every aspect of our professional lives. Now, that's a wrap for today's episode of Navigating Nepotism and Favoritism. I hope you found this discussion insightful and empowering. Remember, each of us has a role to play in creating fair and inclusive workplaces. Let's continue to champion merit and integrity in all that we do. I would love to give a tremendous thank you to my producer, Ms. Moxie Rogers, for keeping me on target. As always, please tune in for the next episode on Thursday, September 19th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll be discussing the topic leadership during moral crisis. Again, thank you for tuning in and for being a part of this important conversation. Stay inspired, stay ethical, and we'll see you next time. This is Dr. Vaughn signing off from Navigating Nepotism and Favoritism. Stay inspired and continue to lead by example. Bye. You have been listening to Leading by Example, upholding standards without compromise. I am your host, Dr. Vaughn, bringing you inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. Tune in to Transformation Talk Radio every first and third Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific for fun, practical, and educational stories as I share lessons, both the good and the bad, that I have learned in my 20 years of leadership and management experience. As we go through and learn these lessons, I would ask you to be thinking about those lessons that you bring that you could share for potential, hey, you may even want to be a guest on our show. So think about those lessons as we continue to explore inspiring excellence one lesson at a time. For more information, please visit www.enterosolutions.com. That's ENTERO.